everybody. My name is Hilary Bond. I am a pioneer priest and schools worker in the parish of Wareham in South Dorset. I'm a third order Franciscan and I'm a climate activist. I am part of Extinction Rebellion and Christian Climate Action, and I got to know Mark in the hours following our arrest as part of a sit-in on Lambeth Bridge in October 2019. Although I've not been an official Franciscan for all that long, I'm due to be professed in March, but I guess that may now be put off until October. It's been in my DNA all along, I think, particularly with regard to seeing all of creation as brother and sister and longing for justice for that family. I'm going to share with you something of my story as an activist, and I hope that you'll be able to see how that ties in with the life I have committed to as a Franciscan. I guess my love of creation started because my mum taught me to be outside. But that was normal. Back when I was little, playing out was what you did. But I can remember when I was about 3, having pet woodlice on our patio. I can remember being fascinated by the different colours and sizes and the way that different ones reacted if you touched them gently. But there were other family influences too. My Uncle Jim, an ex-miner who lived in South Wales, had an allotment, and whenever we went to see him, he would take me to work with him on the allotment. He grew lots of food, partly because in South Wales, after the mines closed down, it became for a lot of people necessary, and it gave him something to do when there was nothing else. But as well as a love of growing food, he had a particular love of pansies, and every time I went home after visiting him, he would give me a glorious velvety smiley pansy in a pot to take with me, which I would plant in my own special corner of the garden at home. As a primary school teacher, my mum was part of a group that ran eco courses at our local outdoor education centre, and by the time I was a teenager, I was helping her with those. I remember particularly one called Sunship Earth, which invited children to engage with nature using all of their senses. Then I went to college, and although I was supposed to be studying for a degree in music and drama, I lived in a house where I had my own garden for the first time, and that was where I discovered a love of growing food. And that's still a big part of what brings me fullness of life. I love being out in my garden. It's been a lifesaver during lockdown, and it is an unusual day when I don't get out there at all. But I'm also married to an ecological contractor, and our business, Alaska Ecological, which has been going for 35 years, uses big machines in an environmentally sensitive way to rescue endangered habitat. So I hope that you can see that my love for the natural world is something that has always been part of my life. I think, like most of us who are activists, my awareness of the seriousness of the climate crisis has grown over time. Partly because of the work that my husband does and that now my son is involved in as well. The natural world, the climate crisis, ecology in general is a fairly normal topic of conversation in our house. And that has created in me a much deeper connection with the issue of climate change. I think a defining moment for me probably came 15 or so years ago when climate change became for me an issue of climate justice as my awareness became much greater of the impact that the way I choose to live my life has on people in different parts of the world. And that was the point at which I started signing petitions, writing to big business, writing to my MP, and doing everything that I felt was available to me at the time. It was incredibly frustrating. Mostly people didn't answer at all. Sometimes petitions made a difference, but so often it felt like people were patting me on the head and saying, yes, yes, you run away and play, we'll sort it out, and then seeing nothing change. Well, eventually that frustration turned to desperation, and I realised that writing to big business and my MP and signing petitions was not enough. So a couple of years ago, I got involved with Extinction Rebellion and Christian Climate Action, and I went to the rebellion in London in October 2019. We were on Lambeth Bridge as part of the Faith Bridge, the part of Extinction Rebellion where people of all faiths come together in love for our sacred earth. And here, Mark and I, among many others, were arrested because we felt as Christians that we could no longer simply walk away. Since then, as part of CCA and the Faith Bridge, other things have happened, most notably the ongoing vigil. During Lent last year, CCA joined in with the Faith Bridge Vigil for the Earth. The idea was to have a prayer and meditation presence outside Parliament 24/7 throughout Lent. So I signed up to go to London and be part of it several times during Lent, but in the end I only got to go twice because the pandemic arrived and lockdown kicked in. But it was an amazing thing to be part of. The first time that I went, I was part of a group. We were Christians and Buddhists together that day, and the connection that we felt as we taught our new Buddhist friends Taizé chants, and they taught us some of their Buddhist chants, was a beautiful thing. We took turns to be the person standing up and interacting with the public because lots of people stopped to ask us what we were doing, to take pictures, to interview us with their smartphones. Some of them even stayed to join in with us, which was great. Rowan Williams, who's a great supporter of climate justice, joined us briefly one day, and there were quite a few conversations with MPs as they came and went. The second time I went, it was very different. Lockdown was approaching, people were less ready to engage, and I spent a couple of hours kneeling alone in prayer on the pavement, and that was a bit more of a challenge and could be a whole other story. But Jesus never said that following him was going to be easy, and that was absolutely what I was doing by being there. Then last September, there was another major rebellion. There were activists out on the street in London, Manchester and Cardiff, and certainly in London, the vigil was very much at the heart of what we did. So I went to London for several days, we marched, we prayed in silence, kneeling in Parliament Square, surrounded by busyness and noise and police. And I found that I was so deeply centred, so aware of God's presence in that place and of his care for what was on our hearts. It's really difficult to put into words. Well, that's at least part of the story of why I do what I do. Feel free to get in touch if you'd like to hear any more, but thanks for listening.